picture this. The weather's getting nicer, and you look outside your window and you see all the nice cars come out to play. Everybody's loud. Everybody's got nice wheels, and you've just seen Fast and Furious for the 12th time in a row.
Why don't you nice boys let your cars do the talking?
I only race for pink slips.
You're sick of being inside. You want to be outside, free, on the roads. And you think it's time to get a car. But you don't want to get an automatic. No, you want to get a real car. A real car with a shifter. But you don't know how a shifter works. Hi, I'm Climaco. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to drive stick shift. And or manual, and or standard, whatever you want to call it. Today you're going to learn that. So hop into this 2018 WRX and let's go. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is get acquainted with the setup of a manual car. It's pretty much the same as an average car, but you'll notice some differences that we'll get into as we continue this video. So before you actually get the car moving, let's talk about some of the parts that you're going to see on a daily basis, especially the first time you step into the car. I'm joined today by my good friend Anthony, an automatic driver, but he knows a thing or two about driving stick, and he'll be here to give his input as an automatic driver. Let's get into it. So this is the view. This is like your point of view driving view when you're inside a manual car. Everything is pretty much the same as an automatic, except, do you have a Prindle?
It does.
This car does not have a Prindle.
The what?
The Prindle.
Are you referring to the shift lever that says PRNDL?
You'll notice that instead of a Prindle, we have a gear shift. Most gear shifts are either 5 or 6 speed. This one is a 6 speed. You'll notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But instead of 5 and 6, I have jail and prison and R for reverse. This and another thing is the bread and butter. I would say this is the bread, not the butter of the manual. We'll talk about the butter later.
So you're telling me this isn't for race mode?
R does not mean race, actually.
It's pretty disappointing.
I know. Sorry to disappoint. This is what you're going to be touching most of the time when you drive, when you shift gears, when you want to get the car moving. This is what you touch. So it's important to get, acclimated with it. You want to know the throws and, like how smooth it is and all that. And you want to know the distance, because the last thing you want to do is be in third gear, try to shift into fourth, and end up in second. Because that is how you blow up your engine. Or worse, if you're feeling froggy and you want to race, you don't want to go from first to second and then back to first by accident. That is called a money shift. Why? Why do you think?
Costs a lot of money to fix.
Yep. Anthony knows about costing a lot of money to fix a car right now, right?
Why are you the pain? I just want my car fixed.
Okay, what I recommend when you first get your car is to just learn the feel of it, learn the throws. This is a WRX, but it does have a short throw shifter on it. So that means that the shifts from side to side and up and down are a little bit shorter, because normally you're pretty much punching your dash when you shift. But this makes the throw a little bit shorter. What? What's so funny?
I just imagine someone shifting from second to third and just boom! Just like rocking their head.
Fist into the dash. So yeah, this is a short throw shifter, so this took me a while to get used to. Another thing that you want to pay attention to with the shifts is that although this pattern tells you what gears it's in, it's hard to tell visually what gear is what. So this is first gear. That's first gear. Follow me. That's first gear. That's third gear. They look exactly the same. This is why you have to know the feel of your car. Anthony has done this a few times when he was driving my car for the first time. He went from first to second to third, and then instead of going to fourth, he went into sixth. Wait, I gotta put the clutch in. He went into sixth because it looks the same. It's literally, so you can't tell it visually. It's more of you have to understand the feel.
The way you told me is, if you're going from second, when you're going to third, just don't push or pull. Just literally go like that. And then fourth, down. And then fifth, pull. Well, technically that's pushing away from you, but for me it's pulling. And then you're in fifth, and then pull down like that. It's just the feel. Yep. And then same thing with first to second.
Yep. So to recap that, if you're driving, and you want to get into first, pull it towards you and push up. First gear. Second gear, pull it towards you and pull down. You can just do it in one motion too, you know, but if you want to do it in two, it's left, up, and then second gear. To get into third gear, you could literally do it with one finger, just let it center itself, and then push up and you're in third. You don't want to put too much force because I've done this before when I was learning. I went from second and I pushed a little bit too much that way, and I ended up getting into fifth. And you'll know because the car, it sounds like it's wheezing.
It'll start yelling at you.
Yeah, it'll just, you'll know. The worst is when you're trying to go from fifth back to fourth, which I've done before, and you end up in fifth and you go to second.
How was that?
Oh my god, dude. That's one of the worst feelings ever. So yeah, just get a good feel for your gear shift. So that's the bread. Now let's talk about the butter. The butter of a manual, which sets it apart. This is one thing that sets it apart, but the thing that really sets it apart from normal cars is that. You see that? You see that? So this is your gas pedal, brake pedal, and this is your third pedal. This is your clutch. This is the most intimidating part of learning how to drive manual. This is all right. You know, you'll learn this eventually, but this is something that you really have to practice. You have to know the feel of, because it's different for every car, and every car has like different clutch kits, and there's different, it's, you know, but clutch feels, aftermarket, stock, whatever. There's different feelings to this. And now your clutch is important because this is what you use to shift gears to get the car moving. What else? What else is it used for? That's pretty much it, right? So when you're shifting gears, you're putting the clutch in. When you want to start your car, a lot of manuals require you to put the clutch in, and then you turn your key.
If it's a push start, it's brake and clutch.
Yep. If it's a push start, you clutch in, brake, and then you push your little start button. But for my case, it's clutch in and turn the key. So again, this is your clutch pedal, brake pedal, gas. To start your car, clutch all the way in, key in the ignition, and start it up. Okay, so what you'll see a lot of people do, which is a good habit to pick up on, when you start your car, my foot is still in the clutch. Clutch is all the way in. But what a lot of people do is they'll wiggle the gear shift, right? Because when you wiggle it and it does that, when it's straight in the middle, it's in neutral, which means it's not grabbing a gear. This means that the car is in neutral gear-wise, and your clutch means that the car is also in neutral. So now I can let the clutch out, and we're just chilling, right? If you're in gear and you let the clutch out, you're gonna have a horrible experience because it's gonna lurch, and then the car's gonna die. Should I demonstrate? I don't want to demonstrate.
Nah, don't do it. Your car doesn't deserve it.
All right. But yeah, make sure you're in neutral when you start your car. It's happened to me several times because it's good practice when you park the car to leave it in gear just in case your e-brake fails. I'll talk about that later. So I've had a few times where I left the car in gear either in first or reverse, and because I wasn't thinking, you know, you're a little bit absent-minded, you're tired, or you're in a rush, you just clutch in, start the car, release the clutch, and the car just lurches in the worst way, and it'll definitely get your attention. So just remember, give it the little wiggle, you know? Even if it's excessive, sometimes I'll just wiggle excessively. But yeah, that's really what sets a manual transmission car apart from an automatic, is that you have your gear shift and your clutch. You have your third pedal here. Now let's get into actually driving the thing. The thing that you have to know about manual cars, well, for me, that helped me learn anyways, you have to have like a whole routine, like a kind of like a checklist, you know, before you start moving. For me, it's clutch in, first gear, foot on the brake, and then release the e-brake. This is your e-brake. If you have a rear-wheel drive car, you can pull this and do a sick drift, but I can't. This is what holds your car in place. The reason I hit that last is if I'm on a hill and I don't get into gear, the car might roll back. And if the car rolls back and my foot's not on the brake, the gear will catch itself. You know, like it'll stall out, but the gear will lock so that the car can't move. So that's the reason behind my checklist. So again, neutral, foot on the brake, clutch in, first gear, drop that. And now comes the hardest part of learning how to drive stick, is getting it moving. For a Subaru, for WRXs, they have hill assist. I would highly recommend turning that off, but you know, each car is different. But there's one universal thing that I learned in like newer sports cars that are manuals. Now before, maybe in an old car, I don't know, I don't have experience driving an old car, you would have to add gas, right? You would have to add your gas to get the car moving, and you slowly let the clutch out. Okay, so we're in gear now, clutch is all the way in, foot is on the brake. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let my foot off the brake, all right? And we're in first gear, I'm not touching the throttle. I'm slowly gonna release the clutch, slowly, and you'll feel the car start to shake. And if you do it slow enough, the car will actually start to move. And at that point, you can release the clutch completely. You're already moving, and all you do is add gas. and now you're driving in first. Thank you. So what you want to do is you want to practice this. You want to, again, to brake in a manual car, you want to brake a little bit, clutch all the way in, and then stop all the way. Because if you don't, if you just hit the brake without the clutch, you're going to stall out. So again, same practice, clutch in, e-brake down, foot off the brake, slowly release off your clutch, and the car's going to start moving. And it's moving. And once it starts moving, you can remove your foot from the clutch and just add some gas and you'll start moving again. Now, the key is to practice that a lot because there's this thing called a bite point on a clutch. And that's what's different in every clutch in every car is the bite point. Some of them are high, some of them are low. And what the bite point is the point where the clutch will actually engage with the gear and you'll start moving. So for this car, the bite point is mid to high, meaning that it's pretty dead until you get about midway, and then the car, you'll feel like the clutch get a little bit rougher and you'll feel the car shake, and that's your bite point. At that point, if you already know how to drive and you get that bite point down, that's when you can start adding gas, and then you let off the clutch the rest of the way. And if you can do that right, then you know how to drive stick. Well, you know how to drive it in first, and that's the biggest part of it, I would say. So let's pull over to a safer space here. See, you gotta wiggle it, you gotta make sure you wiggle it and make sure you're neutral, make sure you're safe. Again, if you're in gear and you brake and you're not in neutral, you're gonna stall out, it's gonna feel terrible, it's gonna be embarrassing if there's people around you, because I've done it before. And it's just not a good time. So again, run through your checklist. Car's in neutral. Car's already started. Carl is in neutral. All right, again, go through your checklist.
Blooper reel.
Get your checklist going. Make sure the car's in neutral. Clutch in. First gear, put your foot on the brake. Now you can let off the e-brake, let off your brake if you're on a flat surface, and slowly let off the clutch, and you're gonna feel the car start to shake, start to move. And if you do it gradually enough, the car's gonna move. If you just dump the clutch, the car's gonna stall out. So again, slow and steady. Also, another tip that I didn't learn, that I learned the hard way is, I don't know, when you drive and you use your gas and brake, this is the floor. You just do this, right? You just alternate between the two? Mm-hmm. Okay, I do that too. You can't do that for your clutch pedal. I tried. When I was learning, I tried to just so this is the floor, this is my left foot. I tried to just push the clutch down and let it out like that. The clutch is way too deep for you to be able to do that. So what's going to happen is you're going to try to do that, then you're going to have to push extra on your floor. Your foot's going to drag on the floor. And then as you try to release, it's not going to release enough, and you're going to have to like drag on the floor back, and it's just going to stall out. To push a clutch in, what you want to do is actually physically push down and move your foot like that, right? So actually kick down.
Like you're doing a seated leg press.
Yeah, kind of like you're doing a leg press. Because otherwise this, like if you just try to pivot it, the clutch spring is too heavy, it's not comfortable, you're going to catch a mean cramp on the highway, and you're probably going to end up in a ditch, you know? So you don't want to do that. Help me help you, all right? So again, that's how it looks fast, and then as you get used to the bite point, you can start adding gas. That one was just for me. That one was for Daddy. Once you practice getting your bite point down, you'll know when to add gas, and you'll be pretty good at just getting into the motion of things. So say you're parked on a flat surface like we are right now, cars are neutral, the car's already on. Just gonna show you how it looks. Give it some gas, find the bite point, and it just starts rolling, and you're good to go. You know? Now let's talk about shifting. You've seen it in the movies, Fast and Furious, where they have the unlimited shift, gear shift, you know? And that is relatively simple. So what you do when you're moving is you'll get to a certain speed and you'll see your RPM start to get really high. That means it's time to shift. What you do is you get your foot off the gas, clutch in, go into second, and release the clutch, and you'll be in second. Same thing with third. Get your RPMs up, clutch in, clutch out, and you'll be in third. Now, it's important that you get your foot off the gas, because if you clutch in while your foot is on the gas, you're going to over-rev your engine, you're going to burn your clutch, it's just not going to be a good time. Let's talk about why you shift gears. So this is your tachometer, that's your RPMs. You can tell by it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 6, 7, and 8 is red line. You generally don't want to go there, and it's by thousands. So 1, one on the tack is 1,000 RPM. Your car idles on a stock WRX. It idles around 500 to 800 depending on if your AC's on or not and all that stuff. But let's talk about why you actually have to shift gears. So we're gonna put the car in first gear and we're gonna start driving, and you're gonna see how quickly the RPMs rise up compared to the speed. So we're at 15 miles, 16 miles an hour, and we're already at 3,000 RPM. Now the higher RPM, the more gas you burn. So the reason you shift gears is because the lower your gear, the higher your torque, but the lower your top speed. So first gear can have a bunch of torque. When people drag race, they put the car in first because it has the highest torque, but it has the lowest top speed. Let's get a nice straight line going here. This is first gear. If I step on it, add gas, I accelerate the fastest, but also my RPMs shoot up. And like I said, you don't really want to go into red line because that's when the engine is working the hardest. So to combat that, you shift gears. Get your RPMs up, clutch in, go to second. And now, second still has some torque, but it frees up some of that top end speed. And that has to do with gearing ratios, and there's like a whole lot of science to it. That's the simplest way I can explain it to you. If you're cruising on the highway, I'm usually fourth gear, which is this gear. And there's not a lot of torque there, but you know, it's enough to accelerate if needed. And super cruising, like highway, like you're not gonna accelerate, you're trying to just coast, that would be your fifth and sixth gears. Now, as you get to know your car, you'll know what RPM it should be at and at what speed. You can tell that by the sound of the car, by the way the car feels, like if it shakes. Right now, I'm in fourth gear. This is way too low of a speed to be in fourth gear. If I step on it, it's called lugging the engine. It's defined as when there's like too much load on the engine, it doesn't have the high enough gear. Because as you go up in your transmission, your gears get smaller. That's so that it's smoother. It's the rotational. You need less rotational. I'm nerding out right now. You need less rotational force to keep the car running, and it's more fuel efficient, and it's a lot smoother on your drivetrain. And that's because it's a small gear. And because of that, you don't get a lot of torque. That's why if you need to accelerate, you downshift. Now, this is fourth gear. We're going 13 miles an hour. If I step on it, the car is going to shake horribly bad, and it's not going to go anywhere. You're not going to pick up speed. You're going 15 miles an hour. You want to accelerate. You can drop down into third, but that still won't be enough power. That's still not enough torque, and you're still going to be lugging your engine. What you want to do, as you get to know your car, you need to know what RPM and what gear you need to be at what speed. So right now I'm going 15. I know this is second gear territory, so what I'll do is I'll downshift into second, and from there I'll have a more responsive throttle response. More responsive throttle pedal? The throttle is more responsive, is what I'm saying here. And as I'm speeding up, as I get to like 3,000 RPM, if I'm not racing anybody, I say 3,000, 2,500 to 3,000 is a good place to shift. So what I'll do is, I'm making a turn right here, I'll let the car get up to 2,500 to 3,000, and I'll shift into third. And you want smooth shifts. The power delivery is pretty linear, except in the stock tune in this car, it's pretty torquey, pretty punchy. But yeah, as you drive, you just get, as the RPMs increase, here, turn the camera this way. As your RPMs increase, so say we're in third gear, 26 miles an hour. As we accelerate, I'm gonna shift into fourth. And it keeps the ride smooth. It keeps the RPMs at a consistent level, and it keeps you from burning more fuel than you need to, really. So now what we're gonna do, we're just gonna get some footage of just casual driving. The first few passes, I'll call out what I'm doing, and then after that, I'll just let the car audio run, and you guys can get a feel for it, or you know, just see what's up. So again, clutch in, first gear, brake down, find the bite point, blip the throttle a little bit, start rolling, foot off the clutch. You're driving. Shift into second. Alright, we're going to shift into third. Off the throttle, clutch in, third. Alright, now we're going to downshift, which is an advanced technique. It requires you to clutch in, blip the throttle, and pull down into second. It becomes one move, but when you're learning it, that's the hardest thing to learn.
Now, Kyle, explain. When you shift into every gear, do you have to do it just as much, like when you're going into first to second, or can you get off the clutch faster?
Oh, that's a good point. I don't know how it works for other cars. I'm only really familiar with the Subaru, and Subaru has a pretty bad rev hang, the WRX. So when you're going from first to second, you want to let out the clutch slower than you would going into, say, second to third or third to fourth. And that's just because of the gearing ratio and the way the RPMs fall. Okay, we're about 3,000 RPM. Off the throttle, clutch in, second gear. And same thing, we're at 25 once we hit 3. Off the throttle, clutch in, third gear, clutch out. And now you can notice that I'm letting the clutch out a lot faster as we go up in gear, so same thing. Third to, oh, lost the camera there, third to fourth, and then the clutch just comes out.
Gotta die, I'm going like the greats. I don't plan it, but I live like it's today. Pop a quarter off a quarter and I'm straight. She can't stand me, but she came here anyway. If I gotta die, I'm going like the greats. I don't plan it, but I live like it's today. Pop a quarter off a quarter and I'm straight. She can't stand me, but she came here anyway.